Hey, Crystal Maiden here. Something I haven't mentioned yet in part 1 is that I love the music that plays at the very beginning of the game. When you first leave the house and you don't have the sword yet, different music plays in the overworld than it would for the rest of the game. And there's just something about it that I like a lot more than... Cause the theme that you hear when you're wandering around Hyrule, it's pretty much the same melody in every Zelda game. And I mentioned it in Zelda 1, but I never really liked it all that much. Oh yeah, I pressed L there, and that's why it went widescreen. This is one of those games that looks bad stretched out, so I immediately went back to its original resolution. It's a good thing that you can't read it yet, because that would be a huge spoiler. I fast forwarded through most of this because it's telling you stuff that you already knew. I wish that the text scrolled by that fast. Like seriously, we already know about the spin attack. And why is it called the whirling blade technique? It's called the spin attack, everyone knows that. Is that like early installment weirdness? But I could have sworn it was called the spin attack in Link to the Past. This is not a chest, but why would you think it is a chest? It doesn't look anything like one. Anyways, something I haven't mentioned about the spin attack yet is that in A Link to the Past, you are forbidden from using the spin attack and an invisibility item at the same time. Like, you try to use the spin attack when you have the Cane of Byrna activated, and it doesn't work. It doesn't let you charge it up and use it. Which is kind of good, I guess, because it would make breaking boss fights all the more easy. Because you'd be able to spin attack them to deal double damage as well as being invincible. The trading side quest is mandatory for beating the game. Like, you need to get the bananas in order to get monkeys to build a bridge that allows you to progress to the next dungeon. So, there's no skipping the side quest. So it's not really a side quest then, is it? Because it's not side of your quest, it's mandatory. I mean, most side quests are optional stuff that you can do to get pieces of hearts and other treasures. Like, I like the idea of the trading side quests. It's really fun and satisfying. It's also pretty easy to remember how to do it and in which order, even if you haven't played the game very much. But I'm not sure if I like the idea of a side quest being mandatory. And this is the compass. And it has a cool new features that if you go into a room where there's going to be a key, then you'll hear a certain noise. And that signifies that there's going to be a key. And that noise stops playing when you've already gotten the key from that room. Do they really have to tell you that keys open locked doors? I mean, seriously? I didn't make fun of that enough in Link to the Past, but it's pretty obvious. And they really don't have to tell you every single time. I mean, they could have easily programmed it so that they stopped telling you what the items were after the first time. And getting the compass is excruciatingly annoying in this game because its text box is the longest of all, and so you're constantly forced to read so many lines of text every time that you get it. It's painful getting the compass in this game. It sounds like a nitpick, but all those seconds add up, and it really could have easily been avoided. Oh, I hate this enemy. I hate this enemy so much. It's so hard to accurately time it, because they switch between the multiple different stuff that it can land on so quickly. Like, it can take like over a minute for me to make it so that they all match up. Why do they have to switch so quickly? Screw it! You get a treasure chest from defeating those guys. I'm pretty sure what you get is a beak, and when you get the beak, then you can put in the owl statues and they can give you hints. And different owl statues give you different hints. It's It's owl statues in the DX version, but it's stone tablets in the Game Boy version. You don't have bombs yet, so you can't do anything about this cracked wall here. The keys, unfortunately, well, actually, they act exactly like they do in Link to the Past. So, they're really not a problem. I was thinking of Minish Cap. They act exactly like in Zelda 1 in Minish Cap. And so I really hate them for that. There are sparks going around, and I don't really like the way they look. Like, they're all gray and stuff. And this is why I hate block puzzles. How are you supposed to know which direction you have to push them? And this is the first instance of enemies like this in Zelda series. You flip them over by walking into them with your shield up. I've heard that you can also flip them over with a shovel, but I don't know how people got that idea because I tried it multiple times. And I just kept walking into them, or the shovel didn't do anything. Maybe you have to be really close up to them, at which point it's not really worth it. That heart should give you an indication of what you're about to get. It's the Roc's Feather! That's right, you can actually jump in this game. A top-down Zelda game with platforming. And you might think, but Crystal Maiden, you can't platform in top-down perspective. That's why it switches perspectives. You see, one of the most iconic things about this game to me is that it has 2D platforming sections. Like, it's just like in Zelda 1, you go down to the basement, and then all of a sudden you're moving in 2D. But, like, it's a lot less comparable to Zelda 2, and a lot more comparable to Zelda 1 where you go down the staircase. And that's a really bad thing when you put platforming into it. Because the problem with the Roc's Feather in the platforming sections is that, I mean, you jump pretty high here. But when you're in the platforming sections, when you're in the basement, in the side-scrolling areas, you jump so... Your jump is terrible. You have barely any height at all. And it makes the platforming sections really awkward to control, especially considering that you have a Castlevania jump. As soon as you jump in the side-scrolling area, you don't stop moving until you land. And that can make precise platforming really awkward and tricky. That boss fight wasn't really that big of a deal. You just jump over his rolling pin, and you'll be fine. Well, that's dark for a Zelda game. How did those people get in there? Did 3 different people come in to try to stop this guy? This boss isn't nearly as nightmarish as, well, actually, yeah, I think if you fall into the pit there, then you fall into that basement that I was just in. But it's not nearly as easy for him to knock you into the pit. And because you have the Roc's Feather and you can just jump all over the place, it's really not that big of a deal avoiding his attacks. I have died to him a couple times, but he's pretty easy. It's really easy to die at this point of the game because you have so little health. And because, well, the Roc's Feather increases your agility quite a bit because you can jump all over the place and continue attacking while you're in the air, which is a feature I absolutely love and makes the combat incredibly fun. But later on, oh yeah, foreshadowing there. But later on in the game, you don't really... There's only 2 item slots, and you're always going to have the B button having the sword equipped, because naturally, you always want to have the sword equipped. So, it's going to get to a point where you're not going to have the Roc's Feather equipped very often, because so many times you have other items you want to equip to your A button. So, while it is fun attacking it with the Roc's Feather mid-air, it wears off after a while, because you aren't able to do it anymore eventually. Yeah, those kids waste your time because they take too long, and they don't really properly explain what happened. I do like the music that plays when the kids are warning you, though, and when this is going on. Like, it gets very repetitive when you listen to it for too long, but it does a perfect job of creating a tense, frantic atmosphere. So, Madame Bow Wow, I'm pretty sure it wasn't Madame Meow Mao. I don't know, she has a really weird name. And did that monster just talk? This trend started out in Zelda 1, where sometimes you would go down staircases and you would find moblins that would give you money as a bribe. And this actually carried on to this game. And it's actually turned up to 11. There are lots of monsters that will actually talk to you in Link's Awakening. And not just boss fights either, as you just saw. A regular old Moblin monster just talked to you. This boss fight is really annoying because it's just a wait around boss where you just wait for him to charge, and sometimes he doesn't charge into a wall and gets stunned. So then you have to wait even longer. And there's a lot of time pressure, so you can't really charge up a spin attack, because chances are you might run out of time by charging up. So this boss fight is so tedious and dragged out. But anyways, I don't entirely like the idea of the monsters being able to talk, because it creates some unfortunate implications, because, okay, these monsters are just as human as the people are, so what now? If the monsters are people, then either you portray them all as evil, which is kind of a stereotype in lazy writing, and very patronizing to the audience, and childish because of that. Or you have Link be kind of a heartless murderer, serial killer or something because, oh, it's a monster, his life has no value. It creates the kind of unfortunate implications, you know? So I prefer monsters in the Zelda franchise not being able to talk. It dehumanizes them, so it makes it easier to kill them, because they're enemies in a video game. You shouldn't feel bad about killing them, because that's what they're for. The zombie things always respawn, and sometimes it can be annoying to kill because they constantly disappear when you're trying to kill them. Oh, and this is really awkward. You can do diagonal jumps with the Roc's Feather, which is awesome, but sometimes it can be really awkward. Like, you have to hold, like, to get over here, I had to hold up while I was in the middle of my jump across that pit, so that I didn't overshoot it. Like, that's a really awkward jump. Bow Wow has a sort of feature to him where he'll automatically eat enemies. But you have no control over what enemies he'll eat, or when he decides to do it. Like, you can try and attack stuff all you want to try to hopelessly signal to him that you want him to do something for you, but he won't. Ugh, really? See me when you're alone. Really? Yeah. Even though I skipped that owl dialogue, he still shows up eventually. And if you select, if you go to the map and you select if you select one of the screens that the owl talks to you on, then you'll get all of the dialogue from him all over again, and you won't be able to cancel out of it. Like legs are in this game, and it didn't drop my shield, but I still got it back. That's kind of unintuitive. But yeah, we're gonna see later on just how stupid the AI of this thing is. Because you have no control over when it eats something, and you can't force it to eat something in any way. It just decides to do it. No matter how close you are to something, that's not going to guarantee that it eats it. This is basically the hint system for the game. Although, the hints are completely fixed based on what part of the game you're at. It's not like the Gossip Stones in Ocarina of Time 3DS, where there's a huge list of different hints that you can choose from. And this is exactly why Bow Wow sucks. Because you can't force him to eat the flowers. I was clearly attacking that flower multiple times, and I even ran into it, and he wouldn't attack it. He wouldn't eat it. Oh, I can forget whether you get 20 or 50 rupees from opening that chest. I stopped the recording a little too early. But yeah, getting through the swamp is annoying because you can't force him to eat the flowers instantly by pressing the B button. I'll see you in the next part for the next dungeon.